jelly and jam. So jam has pulp.
Jam has pulp, and jelly has no pulp. It's strained juice. I learned this from my friend Google, who I was looking up how to make stuff out of plums, and I wondered what the difference was, and so I figured it out. But yeah, I made some plum jelly. So we did a little urban foraging. We got a Airbnb the other day, and it had a plum tree in the back. So we just pinged the guy and said, "Hey, what are you doing all those plums?" He said, "I don't know. You want some?" So there you go.
Interesting.
Sometimes good stuff is where you find it.
Right.
Well, explain preserves to me.
3, 2, 1, 0, 0.
You're listening to the Knives Templars.
I got a piece off of the wagon that Sam Houston used to take JFK to the moon.
Pinto sauce. I like that. Pinto sauce.
Pinto sauce. You're tuned in to the Knives Templars podcast. Featuring Jason Fry.
Yeah, I've been just been doing what we do.
Long time listener, first time caller. Eric T.R.E. Rivers.
Holy crap, I built something.
Mark Vasallo.
There would be a lot of places I would launch myself to.
Chip Carlisle. We've had a raccoon come through the screen door down in the family room.
I was a mean kid.
And Josh Ferrand. And now, broadcasting across planet Earth, it is the Knives Templars, coming to you live from Porkhouse Studios right here in Hartselle, Alabama, and scattered across the country. We are on demand, and it's time to sit back and enjoy another show of the KnivesTemplars.com. Yeah, buddy, hey, we had some raccoon preserves, and you remember that raccoon that came through the door and was running through the family room? Well, he's preserved next to a stick on a slab of wood on the mantle next to the tree chicken that I shot and had mounted on a stick up on the wall in the house. We got some, some mounts. Those are preserved. Yeah, Mark.
Right.
Yeah, you know what? So, do you know what else is preserved? Is no, I won't go there. The Odysseer, right? So, hey, I wanted to make a comment right up front. I want to let you know my slick-faced friend Odysseer is he is not a mean kid.
He is not a mean kid.
I want to set the record straight. I want to make sure that everybody knows. And he was not a mean kid.
Well, he may have been a mean kid. He's just a wonderful human being now.
Okay, I'll go with that.
He may have been mean for a day. He may have been mean for a day. That's probably truthful because we've all been mean for a day. What did you join the slick-faced kids club to there, VMAX? I see you've got your face all slicked up.
I did this week. I've been working out, and it was just too much. Like really, it started getting a lot. And so maybe in the winter, that would be better suited for. And I should have probably went a little earlier, but yeah, I finally had one too many sweat-soaked facial hair workouts, and decided to move this way.
See, after I eat soup or drink coffee or whatever, I sit and eat the rest of it off my mustache for the next hour. So dribbles down my beard off my mustache. So that's Jason and I belong to the Bearded Guy Club, this Beard Club. What happens in Beard Club stays in Beard Club.
Definitely.
So, what are preserves? What you explain jam, you explain jelly. What are preserves?
So I think I would call preserves like whole fruit. Like if you just like apricots, for example, if you just pit them and add sugar and boil them down, but don't remove anything, I think that's preserves. Whereas jam is like juice, but with pulp, and then jelly is just clear, strained juice.
All right. So what we're going to do, right?
That's the best me and Google can figure out anyway.
Jelly and preserves are both full fruit spreads, but they differ in the amount of fruit they contain and their texture. Jelly preserves is made with whole and large pieces of fruit. 10 points. Fry, you're ahead tonight with 10 points on the board already. Congratulations. And you were allowed to phone a friend, Google, but no using.
Where do you think I learned all this stuff?
Well, that's how we all passed the test today. But there's no using Alexa tonight. Alexa has been outed in the public, and I'm not going to get political other than to say when Alexa won't talk about one candidate but implores you to vote for the other candidate. I don't care which candidate it is. We're not going to use Alexa for fact finding. Vote who for you wish. Vote who for you wish. Vote who for you wish. This is this segment was brought to you by national-divorce.com.
There you go.
There you go. Thank you, Alexa.
So is the other, you kind of have a subtitle to that book, but is the second subtitle in smaller print a case for an independent Texas?
Is
there a subtitle?
No. I mean, I did tap the Texit guy for my forward, but I believe, same as we've said on here before, I believe that every state has the right to self-determination, and if Rhode Island, little tiny guy over there, wants to say that they're independent, man, bless them. If Alaska, California, I don't care. I think every group of people has that right. So now it's not specific to Texas. Now I use a ton of Texas references because that's my people. But
there's many states. I'm even thinking like California may pull a Korea on us. There may be a North and South California.
That would work.
Yeah,
that would work.
Of course, it may be North, Middle, and South California because I think the closer you get to the Oregon border, it gets a little different politics-wise as they go that way. So, anyway,
yep. Anyway,
disclaimer.
So
a disclaimer: we're not telling people what to do or vote your conscience. We're just telling you to explore the world of thought. That's all.
There you go.
Anyway, Google is still open. Google is who? Who's Google's lady? Man. You got Siri,
what's
Alexa.
That guy's name?
I don't know.
No, does Google have a side chick?
It should be Pinto. Hey, Pinto. Who should I vote for in the election? I don't know, man. I just take Saturdays and Sundays off, or take Sundays and Mondays off, or whatever, Fridays and Saturdays off for my wife. Now leave me alone. Saturday. So, no, he's a nice guy. Has been since that one day when he was a kid. Hey guys, welcome to the Knives Templars podcast. We're going to talk about knives now. I am Chip Carlisle and welcome you to the best podcast on the planet. You ask all 7 users and listeners and they'll tell you the same. I want you to settle in for a new episode. This is episode 65, yet to be named. Maybe it's the Three Amigos. And we're glad that you tuned in. We're glad you tuned in today. Hey, I want you to know that we all work solid to give you your money's worth every time we put one out here. Matter of fact, 4 of us skipped tonight's podcast. They're out squirrel hunting, but the rest of us are here tonight because, hey, we don't need those squirrels. We'd rather talk to you. Matter of fact, so I want to talk to you about knivestemplars.com. If you haven't been out there, check out our sponsors page, check and support our sponsors. Also, check out any changes you may see. We have some hot topics, questions, and general discussions tonight about knives. We're going to keep it on knives because I think last episode we were all over topics, which is fine from time to time. But then again, we may talk a little bit about life and states and rights and what makes us interesting. And what's that? And jelly.
Jelly.
Yeah. I make a good apple pie if we want to go into baking and cooking tonight as well. And matter of fact, you know what, Fry? I made a loaf of bread last night.
Oh, nice.
I could have made toast, and for your
jelly. Yeah, it would have been a nice pairing.
Yeah. Yes, it would have. And I'm sorry, I was going off the NPR sweaty balls from the Saturday Night Live. My brain went there when you said it was a nice pairing. No, I never went there. My brain went there, and I had to pull it back to
Gotcha.
Keith Sweaty and the girls from NPR.
That's a classic.
Yeah, but I've got some exciting news. I go out to the mailbox every day and talk to the air. But yesterday I went out there, had a nice letter from Steve Jennings from SK Forge. Y'all want to hear what he had to say?
Sure. I
love it when it happens.
Always want to hear that.
Yeah, he said, "Hey guys, just wanted to say I love listening to the podcast and your mentorship that you put out, and want to throw out a shout out to Eric Rivers, that overachiever. He has helped me a lot in my journey, and it has helped me to improve tremendously. Keep up the podcast with all the information." Steve, we thank you for that. And I agree with you about Eric. Mm-hmm. I tell you what, with his live broadcast and teaching people, I've actually turned people onto him. I've got a guy that's making railroad spike knives up in North Carolina that's picking my brain. And I'm like, the best thing you can do is go watch Eric on Saturday Knives on YouTube and watch him forge out something. And the things I'm telling you, you will see him do. And then you'll replicate that and you'll learn from it. And he travels with his work, and he's probably going to come down here. So I'm going to help him. I've got 332,000 railroad spikes, because when you have a forge, people think, "Hey, you need some railroad spikes. You make them railroads. Can you make me a stake turner if I give you these 342 railroad spikes? Have been sitting in my garage for 3 years." No, and I do appreciate the steel. He comes down here, we're going to turn out something there as well. So yes, kudos to Eric. Thank you for appreciating what he does, and thank you for thinking about us as well. And for that, we say salute. Salute. I think Josh is on the road at work this week. I'm not sure if he's down in Florida or not. I will be over in Tannehill, Alabama at the state park on Thursday night and Friday, maybe Saturday. We'll be
teaching something, right?
Teaching youngins how to forge out knives with using green coal, and
cool. Awesome.
Using some tongs and some hammers and making something that's a knife shape obstick. Not going to sharpen it up for them. They can determine what their pop or mom. But I think it's kind of like my kids went to a forge when they were in high school and came home with some nails that they made. So it gives them the opportunity to see and find out that hot molten steel, not quite molten, but hot steel, is so much more fun than Play-Doh. You ever tried to cut a sandwich? You ever tried to cut a sandwich with a Play-Doh knife?
Can't say that I have.
Yeah.
No, I've cut
a Play-Doh sandwich.
I've cut Play-Doh with a plastic knife that came with a kit. Yeah. And we've all had the little Play-Doh thing where you put the Play-Doh in and you squeeze it down and you make star-shaped turds that come out of it. And
that's great fun.
Turds, and you cut those with the knife. So and that's
similar to having a big, nice hydraulic press. That would squish that metal, right?
It's all in how they get kids started. It is. And, that brings me to Play-Doh being so innovative with their tools. It makes me think of TR Maker, and that's over at tr-maker.com. Since 1980, TR Makers offered high-quality, fast service from Istanbul, Turkey to every country in the world. You need to check out their line of knife-making tools to make your job easier and more precise. You can't do without their products once you discover them. And so much so, Ucell and I have been talking about maybe a little business venture in 2025. So I'm thinking about it now. We haven't gone into any details, but I may become your U.S. supplier of TR Maker tools.
So you sell. You sell.
You sell. I sell. You sell. I sell. You sell.
There you go. By the seashore, or is that somebody else?
No, that would be VMAX. VMAX would have to do that. I sell, you sell up in North Alabama. He's down by the seashore. But he likes to swim, so he's usually running around to Maritime, who Maritime is a great supplier of knife making materials. He is actually a Canadian supplier of TR Maker products. So anyway, y'all go out and visit tr-maker.com. Cool, eh? Very, 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 very nice man. Love what he does.
So talking about demos, me and some buddies are going to do a demo this weekend also. It's open to the public, so anybody can come anytime. I think we've got 2 forges and 3 anvils for 5 guys. Last couple of times we've done it in September, it was 97 degrees or something. It's only supposed to be like 80 degrees this weekend, so we may actually get some work done. It's going to be nice.
Isn't that nice? Yeah, ours is going to be cool this weekend too. I'm loving that. So seems like I remember
you forging at the Yeah, last year too. And
were you making tomahawks or?
I made a tomahawk last year. This is our third year, and I'm out of forged blanks. Like I don't have any rough forged stuff. I've made them all, so I will probably just take some bar stock and forge hunters because I need some hunters. I'm short on my inventory, so that's probably what I'll do. I haven't really made a plan.
So when you're in your shop and you have bar stock, you're talking about bar stock as far as 3/16 or 1/8. Or are you talking about round or octagonal or what?
Most of the forging stuff I do is on a quarter. I don't forge 3/16 very often, although I have. So I'll forge stuff out of 1/4 inch bar. I have the capability to do round or ball bearings or other things with the power hammer, but doing it by hand at a demo, I'm going to take the easy way.
that was my question. That was my question at a demo, because I was like, I just harken back to now that I've got that press. You can set and beat on a piece of steel for an hour, or you can put it in the press for 5 minutes and get it down to
exactly
quarter inch or a little. Yeah. So you're starting out at 1/4 inch, which is wise. I was just having horror flashbacks of standing out in the sun in front of the
with
Harbor Freight,
with a big fat piece of leaf spring and getting after it. Yeah.
With people going, "Sir, why you beating on that tent stake?" Well, in 3 hours it'll be a knife, son. So just keep watching.
Right. Yep.
And you went to Colorado?
I did. I was in Colorado this weekend at the Air Force Academy. They actually, I found out, have a forging class. So they've partnered with Kilroy Forge there in Colorado Springs and a few other people. They've got a little forge set up there in the mechanical engineering department. And so you can go to the Air Force Academy if you're fortunate to get in there and slide in a forging class.
Have you volunteered?
So I've been up there a bunch of times, but I've only heard about it. Like I've never met the guy to volunteer to.
Gotcha.
Definitely open to it, of course. I got a son up there, and I don't know if he'll take the knife making class or not. He may feel like he knows it already. It's no telling. He hasn't even settled into a major course of studies yet. So
right.
But yeah, so, that was up there for the weekend, and I did see some knives in a shop. Oh, that's a good thing to talk about. So I saw some custom knives in this little art gallery. Okay. And we talk a lot on this podcast about being polite to people and giving them honest feedback when they ask for it and not being a turd otherwise and telling them everything that's wrong.
What did you do, Fry?
No. So the maker wasn't there at the art gallery. And I was interested in the 2 knives that they had. And so the lady that ran the art gallery was asking me questions because she didn't know anything about knives and not very many people picked them up. And she knew I was interested. So I said, well, how frankly do you want me to speak?
It's always a good question to start with.
I said, let's do it this way. I said, one artist to another, let me tell you how it is. One artist to another is the way I framed it. I said, this guy's not here. I wouldn't be this direct with him. But if you're the curator of this gallery, I will help you understand the quality of these pieces that sit in front of you. So we talked through them. They were priced okay for what they were. Put it that way. Feather Damascus chef knife at $400 with pretty rough fit and finish, for example. So he had a nice hamon on one, and the bolsters were ground all crooked. So, I mean, it was they had some challenges to them. But for the prices they were okay. They had been there a while, looks like, though. Yeah.
$400 for with issues like that, though?
Well, it's $400 for an integral forged chef with a hamon. Yeah, that's cheap. That's on the low side for that. Crooked. No, it's about right for the crooked one or lower. Right. He might have been a little high. I told her, I said, that's the art gallery price for these, But I also told her, this same knife the feather Damascus one, that'd be a $1,500 knife if I was making it, but it wouldn't have all these issues either, hopefully. So anyway, she got a little education on knives. I hope she's not too rude to the guy. I've intentionally not mentioned his name. I did get his card. It wasn't anybody I knew. But anyway, always a challenge finding knives in the wild with people that
that's right
don't know. One time I was in this fancy gun store, like $30,000 engraved Holland and Holland stuff, fancy gun store. And they had a J. Nielsen, actually. This was even before Forged in Fire. And they had a J. Nielsen over in the corner, Damascus Bowie. So you just never know where you're going to find something interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I still occasionally find some of my fishing lures out on eBay.
Cool.
15 years later. And they don't command high prices or anything. It's just, Carolina chip fishing lure, 2007 stamped on it. I didn't stamp them. I signed them with with one of those ink pens that you dip in the ink. And what do you call that? Where the reed type pen. I would sign them and date them on the side with that.
And then clear coated over that?
Yeah. Yeah. Had epoxy clear coat over the top of it. And, it'll just say Carolina chip fishing lures 2007, doesn't work worth a poop, buy it now, $3. No, it's neat to see that, that something like that still floats around occasionally. I figure many
that
of
is
them
really cool.
Probably stuck under piers and this, that, and the other and rotted away a long time ago. It's the difference between fishing lures and knives.
Fair.
Mark, what have you been up to? What have you been up to, Marky?
So, besides for the non-nice stuff of work and starting parade season, there's a couple early parades in the year that people try to throw on, which is good practice for some of my guys. I've been working on finishing up the last of the second Alabama cleaver sheaths. And so, got a bunch of good lessons learned out of that. Really, I'm trying, I keep trying to do new stuff, like stuff that I haven't quite done yet, with leather or with knives. And so I think I'm still at that point where I'm like, ooh, let me try this. So, this time with the newest sheath, I did that first one and it came out okay, but this one I definitely feel was 100% better. I did some work with, different stamp I bought, I'll tell you, I love really good quality, leather stamps that have a nice design on it. This was kind of like a quilt pattern, and then I did some leather paint where I kind of put the buttons in the middle of the quilt, throughout the thing. I painted those blue and, gave it a 2-tone leather dye. And then I've been using on the top tan coat as a top finish. And did a lot of research on it, different than the Resolene and some other products. Tan coat, it is, I guess, semi-porous. I don't know what the right term is, but you can still oil it and have oil go in over time and still keep the leather conditioned and not be a full sealant. But it protects it keeps the dye from like wearing off on your clothes or anything else, and it kind of keeps the leather a little protected. Plus, it gives a nice sheen to it. So I really started liking that a little bit. And
I finished a gun scabbard for somebody, and it turned out really nice. And I just used Tandy top coat, and it looked nice. But I've had people actually start asking me if I will work on their car seats. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. I know a guy, who up in Montgomery, or actually Prattville, who trained with me when I, took martial arts, trained up there. And that's what he did is he brought exotic cars in and redid custom leather for the entire interior.
Oh, wow.
And just a master in craftsman skill. again, I never knew that. I just somebody I trained with, and then I saw what he did, and just amazing work. But
yeah, now I've seen in dealerships where they'll take a used car and take the leather seats. Somebody will come in and re-dye them and refinish the surface with top coat, and they look beautiful.
Yeah,
and I'm not talking about tears and stuff. I'm talking about when the coatings fade away and you start getting that. Yeah, and they do a really nice job. It looks good, but certainly not something I would want to tell. I will tell you though, I saw the picture of your sheath. I've seen your knife, and man, that's beautiful work. So where are these two knives going? One's for you and one's for.
So the first one's really the first one's for me, and really the goal is I'm going to start. I haven't sharpened either one, but I just want to start, using and abusing it. On a chop, you can do everything from some fine work to chopping, maybe chopping some ribs or whatever I'm gonna to chop up, and just kind of see how it performs. And it's high carbon steel, right? And so on a kitchen knife, so see how have to clean it, have to take care of it with the what that's going to be, because the challenge with these Alabama cleavers is that since they're 3.5 inches wide or however wide this one is, if I decided to go with stainless as I'm trying to move into stainless, there's not a really good fit into, if you ever get a dewar or something like that, it's just hard to fit to cryo, treat it after it. Right. And so, can do some stuff with dry ice and and alcohol and get that done. But yeah, so I want to see how the high carbon works on that. And,
so here's what we need to do though. Yeah. You've seen some of those Trolsky videos where he, backpacks out into the forest and cooks a meal using his, beefy knife. You need to come up to North Alabama and we'll head out into the Sipsey Wilderness. It's just like one of those scenes, hike down by the river and you can sit and cook your big beefy steak and by the river, and I'll do all of the videoing and you'll have your 20 minutes of video and it'll look great. I think you need to come up and do that because that's that beautiful of a knife. So if you want to do it, you pick the day to come up.
In fact, I was on the fence about it until you just said at the beginning of the podcast that you make a great apple pie, and really, all life just changed for me. And so,
we can actually make an apple pie in the forest. So you can cut up the apples, and we'll set and lay one out there and cook in the fire.
Big wide knife like a pie scoop, and just scoop it right out of there.
Yeah. And we can eat it on it like a plate when we're done. But seriously, that'd be really cool. You could make a really cool video like that. I'll do it if you want to come up. But
I'll bring it up.
I'll produce it and make it look nice for you. But also, my new car should be here. It's in transit, so if it's not here today, it should be here in the next day or so. So we could do some filming. You driving the Jeep through the forest out to the river and hiking down And I actually know where a friend of mine owns a cabin down there too, so we could do something around the old cabin too. So it's a livable cabin. It's a very nice old livable cabin. So anyway, just thinking out loud right now.
Yeah, no, that's good. I definitely would be interested in that. And,
well, otherwise you have to go down to the beach and hack up clams and break them open with your knife and eat them raw. And that's just not, that's clam rake video.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be good. And
think about it. Think about it.
Yeah. And then the other stuff, right, that's been going on is I finally got back on that other I don't know what you call it, drop handle clip point buoy or whatever that I'm working on here, and
it's beautiful.
So I pulled that out, heat treated that, and then got got my surface grinder out, and again I'm just it probably something really I didn't need at this point in how many knives I'm putting out.
It turned out nice.
Yeah, it's it really.
And that's the Ameribraid surface grinder.
It is the Ameribraid surface grinder. And
any rolls in the surface are pretty much nice and straight all the way across.
So really the most minute, I don't know if you call it like chatter, where you get the, just a little bit of that on there. But so what I do is I'll start with a 120 grit. belt, and then I go to like what's those gator belts? Who makes those?
I got 3 of them. Trizact.
Yeah, the Trizact belts, right? And so I'll move to like some of those, and then really it gets rid of all the almost all the chatter. Like it's just barely noticeable. So I might
just clean it up.
I might clean it up and just but I'm not going to do that yet because I'm going to keep this finish, and I'm still going to go and try to finish up the grind. I put the initial bevels on with the tilt table, and so I think I'm going to finish most of the. I'm going to bring the bevels up a lot higher with that tilt table, which puts some minor scratches in the surface of the night. Then I'll clean up the surface, maybe hand finish the bevels just to that final level.
You're making it too easy. You make this too easy now.
It's not easy. But I did have a question. So here's my question on the on a hidden tang knives. So and I can't. I'll tell you, I've done 2, and I can't remember what I did for them, or maybe it just didn't come up. So I have all the shoulders squared and everything, of course, before you harden it, right? Mm-hmm. And everything's done up perfectly square on this one. And but when you heat treat it, right, you get carbon buildup on the shoulders, which like how do you pull that off? I mean, you're not gonna. I mean, do you go back in and try to file it lightly, or do you what do you do to clean up the shoulders after heat treat?
I'm going to tell you because so that way Jason can correct me. I go back and blue the tang, soften it back up all the way back to the shoulders. And when I blew it, I've softened it up. I clean it up with some sandpaper. And then I take it back to my file guide and I re-square the shoulders. I'm right on the shoulders, just a little tiny bit proud of the shoulders. Mm-hmm. I re-square them and then I cut in the sides at the same time at that point. So I have a little bit of a recess on the sides. So everything kind of sits square all the way around. If you just do it flush on both sides, that's fine too, especially if you go in and hammer your guard down to where it's a little bit more flush and then sand all that out where it may warp it a little bit or what I'm talking about. But that's what I do. I blue them after I heat treat it, just leave the blade hardened. Correct me, Fry.
Yeah, that's the way I've been doing it lately too. So I will not set my shoulders until after heat treat. Okay. I will grind them hard with a file guide. And then when I get it, I'll rough grind them eyeball, and then I'll put the file guide on after it's been blued, like Chip says. And then I will use a file to do the long sides, right? So the short sides are easy. You can do those on the grinder with the file guide, but then I do the long sides with the file. That's what I've been doing lately. Seems to work. It's a way I learned from a mentor. So, I mean,
how well is your guard fit when you do that? Because I find that when I do the long side, and try and recess in a little bit, I still got that little hair space in there that doesn't seem. So I end up heat setting it, that guard. And is everybody heat setting? I don't think so. I know some people use dental tools and this, that, and the other, but it's like I'm going for this perfection and I can't seem to find it. I'm close.
I wouldn't say I've found it either. A couple of things that I've figured out. You need a good, sharp, clean, perhaps even new file to get the corner of such a small thing to be sharp. Yeah. Right. So if you're cutting in, 15 thousandths or 10 thousandths on the long side of the tang, that's a hard corner to get sharp. I mean, you really have to have a sharp file. So that helps. But the other thing you can do, that 10 or 15 thousandths gives you some wiggle room a little, so you can, not a stroke, like you can touch the edge
corner
touch the corner of the guard, and make it sort of match that should be, but not quite square, removal there. Does that make sense? And as long as you're covered by your, 10 or 15 thousandths, that's the reason to do it that way, is it gives you some some wiggle room to cover that when the fit is not perfect. Heat is another good way. Like you say, get it to where it almost fits. You know that corner's not dead nuts, but it's fitting really well, and then put some heat on it and give it one tap. Sometimes does the trick. I would not say I have it figured out. I struggle with it just as much as everybody.
Well, good. It's not me then, because I heat it bright red. I found out if I don't heat it bright red, I'm just going to be doing it forever.
You're talking about the guard?
I heat the guard bright red, drop it on there.
Are you using stainless, or what are you using for your guard?
My guards are made out of A36 or 8670. Just, I've got some quarter inch.
Okay, all right, not brass.
No, not brass. I don't think brass would work that way, if I'm not mistaken. But
I've tried that with brass. It's a bad situation.
Comes apart when you hit it hot, right?
It gets almost close to getting hot, and then it goes from like hot to melted in like a second. It looks like it's just getting warm, and then all of a sudden it's melted, and so there's not a lot of transition in there. At least the brass I have.
Yeah, so, I haven't tried. Right. I haven't made any brass guards, even though I've considered it on this new knife, and I don't think I will. But I get it bright red, not yellow, and go in and I whack it about 3 times with moderate, pop, pop, pop. And usually I come back and it's nice and close at that time, but sometimes I've struggled. But I think a lot of that had to do with I had a file guide that wasn't as square as it needed to be. So I just, we'll see on this knife.
I don't do it quite like that. I mean, what you're saying does work. I can guarantee that. But personally, I like to get it a little closer fit. And then, if you get it to where it's 98 2/3% right, then you can bump that just with a plumbing torch up to 300 or 400 degrees. And it just is warm enough to soften it just a touch. And you can get it sometimes in 1 or 2 taps. You'll feel it kind of set. It's a little like setting a 412 or something else where you kind of feel it stick.
And you feel it gets solid.
It doesn't require too much heat if your fit is pretty close already. If you're really trying to move material, get it hot and whack it good. But for the tiniest little bit, just a little bit of heat works okay.
All the knives I've made up to this point were on the guard that I found that was I don't know in thousandths, but a thickness of a sheet of notebook paper off on each side, and I just discovered it. I don't know why it took that long. With that being said, and I am getting it so dang close, you can just barely see light through it occasionally. So I think with the one I'm doing right now, which is with a new guard that's totally square and lined up perfectly, maybe I'll try heating it up with the plumber's torch that I do have and try it when it just gets just red, just barely red, and then whack it from there and see if it seats better. So,
do you have that Nordic Edge now? Is that the one that you bought?
Yes, I have a Nordic Edge that I use for that, and I use. I
have multiple types. I mean,
I do too. I've got TR Maker, and I've got that, and I use the TR Makers when I'm grinding everything in and doing my rough shoulders and stuff. But when I want to just tee things up just perfect, I've done my first knife with the Nordic Edge, and we'll see how it works. But I a little anxious just because I haven't done it yet. And you guys may know that right now I'm making a Bowie knife, and I should have been done with it 4 weeks ago, but I've been sick for about 10 days. Old Riker came over. Riker's parents called on a Friday morning a week ago and said Riker's having problems with his little tummy, and we're going to put him in pull-ups for the day. Riker's 4, and can he stay at the house? I said, well, I'll work from home today. Let me call, make sure I can do that. So I stayed and I took care of Riker during the day, and his little stomach was upset. And then Saturday, Sunday, Monday, man, I look like one of those.
Chip was upset, huh?
I look like one of those. You ever seen those fireworks that sparks shoot out both sides and they spin around? When you light them up. I looked like one of those, but it wasn't sparks. I was spinning all over the place, spewing.
I wasn't laughing at it, right? I was laughing that of the thought that you might need pull-ups too in that situation.
Pull-ups might not have been a bad thing, but I was able to make it. Just don't ever have. I'm one of those guys. If you're not sure that it's gas, don't let it go.
Especially in that scenario, for sure.
Right.
Don't take any chances when you're not sure. But and then I was nauseous for a couple of days. So between helping take care of sick family members, I've lost 10 days. So and this weekend I'm going to be working at Tannehill. So hopefully I get to make a guard next Thursday because I'll be traveling for business for a few days. So. Anyway, it's nice. It's nice, always nice looking at a knife in progress and realizing that I'm nowhere near being I've still got to work. This knife looks really nice. It does. But
yeah, I like the profile.
Thank you. I'm talking really about I can't see anything and go, Jason probably wouldn't like that. And I say that with respect, I say it with respect, Jason.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. But I still know that I've got so much room to grow to feel like I'm going to go look at 4 Guild knives and them go, yep, these are in. I think that I'll be a nervous wreck. Not so much whether I get in or not, is just presenting them to people that it's always kind of fun to present your knives to somebody else for whether it's just acceptance. I showed my knives down at Tannehill in the spring to a journeyman bladesmith, and he critiqued it. And while I walked away feeling good, I also walked away feeling like I needed depends.
I had a mentor in high school.
It was a good feeling. Yeah.
I had a mentor in high school that used to tell me that if I wasn't nervous, that means I didn't care enough. Anything that's that important to you, you should be a little anxious. Otherwise, it wouldn't be important. Right?
Well, I've decided that
whether you have it in the bag or not, you got to treat the process with a little bit of respect. I mean, I get nervous on stuff too, all the time. That's
just like Travis and what's his girlfriend's name? Travis Kelce's girlfriend.
Oh, Taylor Swift.
Yeah, he doesn't know she's a sure thing yet. Her record doesn't speak of it being a sure thing. He may just be a song about an ex-boyfriend someday. He's a little nervous. He's a little nervous. She's worth a little more than him. But I think I've made the Cobra knife, which is presentable. I hope that this knife I'm making right now, the Bowie, will be presentable. And then I think I'm going to do 2 full tang knives that are identical to show that I can do 2 knives identical. Maybe have different handles or such, and maybe different finishes, but the same profile, the same grind. Consistency, and just do 2 hunters that are very nice to present as well. So that way everything doesn't. I love Otisier's style, and I love making those kind of knives, and I will make more of them. But as you guys know, some of us like to float all over the place with things we make. It gets kind of boring making the same thing all the time. Not that Otisier does. He's got variants on a similar style, but I don't have that. In my head.
The upside to that, though, is that you can look at his knife and say, man, that looks like an Otisier Pinto knife, right?
Without a doubt.
If you can develop a style, that's got benefits in the marketplace. There are certain ones that always have that. Like, for me, Wolfgang Lochner or John Horrigan, or, there's folks that you can see a knife and think, well, that looks like so-and-so, right? Yeah. I aspire to that. I don't know that I'm there yet, but there's definitely market value to that approach.
Well, I'm kind of floating back to the I still love the Trollsky style of knives. You look at a Trollsky knife, and you can look at knives, and without seeing the chili paper, you can say that was inspired by or looks a lot like a Trollsky knife if it's not his knife. And it comes down to the pin selection, the neat things he does with choice of his handle material, and it's just his grinds are he makes different style knives, but that basic knife with that nice swoop down spine and the way that blade kind of rolls up around it, it's just a very lovely looking hunter type, Skinner type design. So I'm kind of tending back towards maybe some of those types and improving on the ones that I made before to make them look even better with some false edges and different things like that I was a little nervous about doing in the past. With that being said, if I had to get, I'm going to have to get supplies to make them knives. So the place I'm going to go is Pop Knife Supplies, guys. What about you? You can find them at popsknifesupplies.com. They've been in business for well over 40 years. And it was started by James Poplin, who has passed on. And he has left his business too. Of course, they purchased it to Alan Searles, Joey Berry, and Dirk Lutz. And they are full-time knife makers, and they support this community to all ends. They have great customer service, great products and prices. Check them out at popsknifesupplies.com today. Yeah, they got good products. They really do. I've noticed that you feel good. I've been posting some stuff out on TikTok. I've realized that probably posting some more things out there, and Facebook and Instagram aren't the only places. And I'm really going to start getting into maybe selling some knives again here shortly. I haven't sold any knives in over a year, and getting it out there. And it's nice when you see people like Dirk Lutz coming through and checking out all the knives you're making, or some of the other well-known makers that have either subscribed to you or their names pop up, and it's like, oh, that makes me feel nice just to know that those eyes, touch something you made. So kudos to those guys. Kudos to those guys that leave us. Jason Fry, I saw you had posted out on Blade forums here recently about some questions concerning a hydraulic press you're going to be building. How's that coming along?
Oh, it's completely stalled. Even my 7-year-olds are like, Dad, I thought you were building a press. What happened to that? So, as we know, the economy being what it is, some of the larger, more expensive knives are still sitting at a lot of makers' shelves, and the accounts receivable that will fund my hydraulic press right now is not receivable. It's just sitting there. So I got to sell some knives to finish the press. Honestly, I had a good knife sold that the customer asked me for payments. It was a previous customer, so I agreed, and they have been slow as molasses. They won't get that deal again. So yeah, we're just kind of holding out, waiting on stuff for the hydraulic press project. In the meantime, though, I got 51 blades laser cut last week.
I saw the photo. Yes.
So, again, I'm not a brilliant economist or businessman really, but I've noticed that the big stuff seems to be moving a little slowly. So I think for the next show, I've got a show at the end of September, I'm going to make a bunch. I'm going to go with numbers of smaller, more affordable knives. So we got a bunch of 6 and 8 inch EDCs and Hunters, just in fairly simple steels. And I'm going to crank out as many of those as I can. Again, as high quality as possible and good leather sheaths and everything. You're not cutting corners, but just making simpler knives to hit a price point that might move a little better.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's never not gambling.
If you don't mind me asking, what are you paying to have a blank cut? This was
my first try. This was my first try with laser. And it's been a little while. So I had the steel on hand, and I haven't done the math to tell you like what my final cost per blank is. But I was only paying about $270 per cut. So per each on the high end. I think the smaller ones were like $235. It was a lot cheaper than I expected, to be honest.
Saves a lot of money when all you have to do is go to the grinder.
Yeah. And supposedly there's some risk to laser because you have a little bit of a heat affected zone. And so I'm going to have to mess with that, right? You don't want the edge of your blade being kind of burned out from the laser. So I will play with that and see if my particular blades are affected, because sometimes it depends on the rate of cut.
Right.
It depends on some variables that I don't know and can't measure. So I will probably heat treat a few and do one of them just straight and see what the edge does. And if it doesn't hold, then I'll pull it back a little bit. They say the heat zone is, a 30-second, like it's not much. What's a 30-second about? 4 thousandths, 5 thousandths. I don't know. I'm bad at math.
It's 1/32nd of an inch. If you had 32 of those and stacked them up, it would be an inch.
I remember one time when I was a kid, I was trying to say something was an inch, and my brother was arguing that it was less. And I said, okay, fine. Then it was 31/32. And he's like, time doesn't have anything to do with it, because he was little and he didn't understand it.
Tell you what, that sucker brother of yours, he's quite the knife maker, is he not?
He is a pretty dadgum good knife maker. I
saw that guard that he posted, right? The engraved guard on one of the ones.
Yep.
Man, that was beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, so
and it made me feel really poor, like it just made me feel insignificant. I was like, wow, that's really
try
good.
being his brother, man. It always is that way. He has good access to Austin Community College there in Austin, and so he was able to take engraving classes for like practically nothing. A couple of $100 for a semester of one night a week. And it's he will tell you that it's beginner level classes, but man, that's more classes than I had. It's the kind of stuff you'd have to hunt for and pay for pretty heavily. So he has definitely taken advantage of having that resource there in the Austin, Texas area.
Yeah, that's great.
He tells me he collects hobbies. So he will do jewelry, and then he'll do pipes, and then he'll do knives, and then he'll do cabinets, and then he'll do but he's also talented enough to be good at most of those things.
Well, have him buy a press and then introduce him to a new hobby and just bring the press over.
Yeah, so he works out of a 2-car garage that he shares with his wife, who is also crafty, and so he is. Space is his greater limitation. That's why he's going into engraving and jewelry and stuff, because he's got a workbench in the house he can do all that stuff on. He doesn't have room for big tools anymore, so he's expanding his use of small tools.
Crafty, isn't that an old rap song from the 80s?
I don't know. I was pretty small in the 80s.
You were 4. I was driving a Smokey and the Bandit Trans Am. Drinking Mad Dog 2020.
I had a 280ZX and in the 80s.
Nice.
And so I know Josh would drool over that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a serious.
But he has a whole garage full of them. So
that's pretty cool, though. That's pretty cool.
He does, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. It had T-tops, 2-seater, stick shift. It was.
I will tell you that if you still had that car and you wanted to go back to it, you could go to phoenixabrasives.com and get some great prices, selection and quality and quick delivery on all kinds of belts, discs, rolls, wheels, and anything else you need to get sanding and grinding done right. If you enter Templars 10 at checkout, you'll get 10% off your order, and that's phoenixabrasives.com. Great guys over there, not only for knife makers, if you're doing any type of metal work or other work, such as restoring your old 280. You can go to phoenixabrasives.com. Mm-hmm. But I envied you guys. I had the Trans Am, but man, the 280 was the chick magnet car back in the 80s.
I almost bought a Trans Am, the black Trans Am gold, eagle, the hood, and I was on the border, for a long time, and then finally somebody says like, "Hey, do you know how much gas that thing uses?" And I was like, actually, I never thought about that. And then at that point, I became real aware of it. And so,
well, if you have to ask how much gas something uses, you don't deserve it anyway. For you. It's like somebody asked me this week. They said, I think you guys know, but I'm going to get a Jeep. What is it, Gladiator?
Mm-hmm. And what engine does that have in?
It's got the 6 naturally aspirated motor, so it'll run for 350,000.
Is it like the 4-liter, like the old ones, or they changed it?
I think it's 3.6, and it's the Rubicon, so it's geared and it's got locking front and back axles and everything. So I'm looking forward to getting it and experiencing it. But somebody said, "Do you realize that thing gets 16 and 22 miles a gallon?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why are we talking about this?"
It's a truck. That's what they do.
Yeah, I was going to say the Chevy, this 2005 Chevy 1500 that I'm selling right now that I've had for 8 or 9 years. And it's got 140,000 miles on it, guys, right here in Hartselle, Alabama. Come buy it. I'll give you a good price. Yeah. What is that? knivestemplars@yahoo.com. Email me. You want that truck. It's in excellent condition. It certainly doesn't look brand new, but it could pass for a 5-year-old. It's mechanically and appearance wise, it's been wonderfully maintained. With regard to that, though, it gets like 14 and 17 miles a gallon. It's that big Vortex V8 that pulls 8,000 pounds, and you can hear it slurping when it goes down the road. It's got cold air, though, guys. It's a good deal. Come buy it. Halst, when you can purchase. Matter of fact, I went to purchase a press from my buddy Clark over at Clark Iron Forge. Clark Taplin is the gentleman, but ClarkIronForge.com, and he's grown from a few forges to making hydraulic presses and forges. Now's your time to get one over there. He's got I think a 17, a 25, and a 40-ton press, as well as his forges. And I hauled that behemoth with no trouble back in that 2005 Chevy 1500 with that V8 Vortex engine. That only goes with VMAX, VTEC, VMAX. You ought to buy it, Mark. It's just your backup car. I know you've got a beautiful truck, but you need something that goes Vortex VMAX.
I could pull my house with my truck.
You could pull your truck with this truck. You could pull this truck with your truck.
All right.
Just saying. But if you have to ask, it really doesn't matter. That's all.
No, I agree. Yeah. Hey, Jason, I want to. Can I beat your? Can I beat on that?
Please get
laser thing a little bit more.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Good. so maybe my question is the laser, like, is there a difference? Do you find it better besides for the heat issue that potentially, right? Is it better than water jetting, or what's the difference that you get with the water jet?
So again, this is my first run of laser. I've done water jet a bunch of times. And one thing, the heat zone is the main drawback to the laser, right? So it's cutting with power, not with abrasion. And so I'll have to figure that out. Again, the laser technology is new enough that there's doesn't seem to be an internet consensus yet on what that looks like in knives. Like, it hasn't solidified in the marketplace. I will tell you that the finish of the cuts on the laser is really smooth and nice and clean and straight. Whereas water jet is a little jagged sometimes, and it also has the angled kerf that we've talked about before. So they're different. They're different. Again, this is my first batch of laser. I'm going to have to figure it out. Just off the top, though, the cuts are super clean. The price was affordable. The guy was fast. Honestly, clean and affordable and fast. I'll deal with the heat zone if I have to, right?
Yeah.
So
can they get closer on? Can they cut closer on the blanks?
They probably can. They probably can.
Laser, maybe?
I haven't dug into that, to the specifics capabilities there. I don't know.
It's interesting. It seems like it has, depending on what you find, it seems like this could be really, starting as prices come down on some of these laser machines compared to water jets and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
This might be the new market for some of these for doing stuff like this. So
yeah, it's definitely a direct competitor in the market, and it'll be interesting to see how the market sorts it out over time.
I think, again, I thought I heard or watched some, like that Ameribraid, they advertise all their grinders and everything like that. But I think they have side businesses that aren't knife related, that they do either laser cutting or they do some other things, outside the knife industry that are doing well. And I thought it had to do with like laser cutting, but it could be
laser cut. It could be water jet. So the place that I had these laser cut is a cotton gin manufacturing company. So they just make parts to fix old broken farming stuff. Is their job.
Okay.
So they're one-off custom laser cut stuff as their job. And so
yeah,
I assume mine was sort of simple because it wasn't as big as a cotton gin, and it was four little DXFs repeated a bunch of times, right? So it was probably easier than bringing in a busted part of a machine and having them replicated. So yeah, I don't know. So far, so good though. Like I said, I'm doing the demo this weekend. I won't get to mess with it for a while. I was gonna go to the ranch and set up some deer hunting stuff the weekend after that, but I'm kind of thinking I'm going to stay home. I ended up getting assigned some more business trips, so I've got to go every other week through the middle of November. That was all new, so that's going to make me less likely to want to take off on a weekend and go out of town. So I don't know. I've got a show at the end of September, so I need to spend one hard weekend for sure, just cranking. With the blanks already done, if I can heat treat them in one day, I can grind and finish probably 6 in a weekend, especially if I do most of the small ones. And then it'll take another 2 or 3 days to do the sheaths. So that's kind of my goal, is over the next 3 weeks to try to crank out 6 or 7 or 10 or something. So that's an interesting tool you got there, Chip.
Yeah, it's just amazing. It's amazing where I was, answering some instant messages that were coming in, and somehow I ended up with a video of someone getting some grossly toenails cut. But it was intriguing, so I watched.
What that was?
It was intriguing.
I couldn't even tell what it was. That was nasty.
Yeah,
it was kind of grody there.
Kind of gross and intriguing all at once. It's like Dr. Pimple Popper. I was mesmerized. So, now I got to turn it. So, that just leads me to, now I got to turn it. Now we got to turn to one of the great grinders out there, and that's Ameribraid Grinders and Accessories. Guys, I'm telling you, there's not a better one out there, and I'm not biased. I'm just telling you, there's a lot of grinders that make great knives, but the way these parts fit together, the innovation, the things that they do, their surface grinders, their small wheel attachments, everything, is, what do you call it, backwards compatible. I think with the exception of one item they own is all backwards compatible. And many of it, if you call and let them know, hey, I've only got this size arm, they'll find something to fit on your machine. They'll set it up for you. And that's Ameribraid Grinders and Accessories at Ameribraid.com. Eric and Kevin over there have developed one of the best grinders and some of the best accessories and tools on the market. You take a look at one of their 3 packages, the Mastery Foundations and Get Grinding, to see what's right for you today. If you put in Templars 20 at checkouts, you'll get a one-time 20% off discount on parts and accessories. Not your grinder package, guys, but off parts and accessories. So when you pick up that grinder, go ahead and pick you up a belts kit while you're at it and save 20% off on that, because that'll get you up and running real quick. It's Ameribraid.com.
You know where I saw an Ameribraid grinder? I was like, wow. Because again,
everywhere.
No, that's true. That's true. But who's the manufacturer of those, like, super high end, what do you call it? Rotating platen. What do you call that attachment? You have
like a rotary. Are you talking about like a Jerry Moen or like a rotary platen?
Yeah, Moen, right? So Moen. So I was looking at Moen's website, right? Because I saw their grinding jig and then their rotary platen, and I was just kind of looking at their website, and then I saw their rotary platen was mounted on a Ameribraid grinder.
Huh. Well, my rotary platen is Ameribraid, but I hear what you're saying though.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I think that's testament, right? Like that, hey, those, really top end stuff. And then again, they're not going to put it on you're not going to use it. You're not going to take a super top end, rotary platen and say that I'm going to put it on the cheapest grinder you can find, or just a poorly made grinder, right? They're going to select a grinder that has the same performance as their attachment. So, I think that's kind of a testament of who's buying those things.
I will tell you, speaking of rotary platens, working on that buoy I'm doing, I left it kind of thick on the edge. And you guys were nice and convinced me, Jip, you really need to take that down pretty close and then do a convex grind on the end. Well, I went ahead and did the convex grind while it was still a little thick. And to get that to blend in and everything, I had to really kind of take the knife back up a little bit. I will tell you, the rotary platen's a wonderful tool, man. It just laid it right in there. And the thing is, doing a convex edge on a belt that's got some slack in it to run it down, or even on a belt that has no slack in it, you still lose the edges a little bit when it folds over. That rotary platen just holds that belt all the way across, so it's a consistent angle of convex angle as you're going across. It was wonderful. But then I had to go back and sand all of the imperfections out of that knife. And I will tell you, that's another testament to Phoenix abrasives. You can sand hardened steel. It takes a while. But you can sand it back perfectly. And I always thought, people say, Chip, your grinds are very clean in this, that, and the other. I got to watching some videos over the last couple of weeks and realized that people's grinds, when they do their second grind after heat treating or whatever, they're not always all that straight up at the top, and they've still got divots and holes, and I don't mean holes per se, and then they're just sanding all that back out. They're not as clean as they should be. And I'm like, am I getting them trying to make them too perfect before I sand them out? And no, I don't think I am, but I saw a lot of well-known knife makers that their work before they go to hand sanding isn't all that perfect.
Yeah. So that's a double-edged sword. So if your grind is flat, but it's got some 120 junk underneath, right? That's one thing. If your grind is not flat, no amount of hand sanding is going to make it flat.
unless you totally hand sand it out, and you can do that, but it takes forever.
Unless you pull the entire blade down to the level of the bottom of that scratch.
Right.
Which nobody actually does. That's a lot of, like I say, there's a lot of handwork. But yeah, I mean, I would say, I'll take a knife to 220 and then put it on the disc and make sure there's no divots, and then bump it back up to 400 and then hand sand it. And it's flat. It's flat.
Are those J-Flex or those natural, the thick backed belt, regular belts? Or are you using J-Flex?
Usually I use both. So I use the stiff 120s. The disc, of course, uses paper on an aluminum disc, but I've got a little piece of 1/16 sticky gasket behind that. So it's got just a scotch you give to it. Mm-hmm. And then I usually use the J-Flex. No, it chases the divots a little better. Honestly,
okay.
It kind of blends it out a little more.
Yeah.
And then I use cheap belts for the finish work because I know I'm going to hand sand it. So I'll just use cheap AO belts at 200 or 400 or 600.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to hand sand it. Now, if I was going to stop with the machine finish, I would do it differently. But for what I'm doing, that works pretty well.
I found out that I like to use 220, just the standard backing stiffer belts up to 220. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I will go to a J-Flex belt, especially if I want to go in and round out the plunge line just a little bit. It just seems to have a little more control over the belt, and the belt doesn't have a tendency to get away from you as much. You going up against a hard platen or this, that, and the other, if you go into those thinner belts with any amount of pressure, which you're not wanting to use a lot of pressure at that time, let the belt do the work.
Right.
But we all, there's not a knife maker out there that then say, hands going into the belt and then you pull it back and go, why did I go in fast on that right side? Why did I go in at that angle? My brain was going flat, but it went in at an angle. Damn it. Or I just hit I hit the other side of my plunge line. Now I've got to redo both plunge lines. Everybody does that every knife. Our brains just aren't that mechanical, and our reflexes. But I found out it for me, sticking to a standard back belt, and then when I slow it down to 20, 25, 30%, with a J-Flex at that point and just kind of fine tune it. It makes it a lot easier. And I will tell you, I have done something that y'all may think is silly. You know, the whole thing about getting your bevel started, you go in, you get a center line, you 45 in with an old belt and bring it up to the cutting edge all the way around on both sides. And then you start, feathering it back and going up towards where you want your grind line to stop. I'm silly, guys, but I have found out that if I put it in on my grinding jig and I set and do that until I've got 3/4 of an inch to an inch, that it makes it much easier to go in and establish a very flat surface, because you can grind much faster out of a jig, but it makes it easier to go in. So when you touch that knife to the belt, you're getting a consistent edge all the way across. It just works for me. So I
the jig will help
basically
you keep it flatter, so you don't have to do the 45 thing quite as much. Because you can remove some flatter material there. Yeah.
That's very true. My whole thing is really just going in. You know that feeling you get when you're got a nice flat edge and you just go in and you touch that belt up to it and draw the knife across the belt. I've just found that I can do it both ways, especially with integrals and stuff I make. But it just seems to really just provide a little more ease to go in and put the first half or 3/4 of an inch and then go into it after that, just to make it consistent and much cleaner. We all have our methods. All have our methods. I just threw that out there. Somebody will go, that's stupid, but they're probably more skilled than me. So that's all I got to say about that. You guys want to talk about some topics tonight?
Sure. What you got?
Sure. Yep.
Well, I'm not gonna lie to you. I went out and was on the internet today, and I saw some questions out there that I don't know if they were adequately answered, and some of them may have been, but I thought I would get our take on them. So these are topics from the web. So here we go. Right. Here we go. First one is it's about heat treating small buoys. Nothing not associated with what I'm making, but it's on hardening. So I harden with a Forge. Mark, you use an oven. Jason's got Forge and a oven. So so this gentleman says, so I just heat treated a small buoy, but after 4 attempted quenches, the blade would not harden. I did 3 normalizing cycles and quenched it, but the back 1/5 of the edge was not hard. So I quenched it again, and this time none of the blade was hard. A file bit right in. I quenched it for a 3rd time, and looking back was not a smart move, and the file still bit in. I then did my normalizing cycles and quenched it and got a harder blade than before, but still not hard enough. Any idea what was happening or what I can do? I'm using 1084 and canola. It's out of my league.
I have a couple of theories.
Can I give one? Because you have the right theory, and I'll give.
That's debatable.
We love it. We love it when Jason corrects us because we learn.
That's right. And so I'll say something that I have found, right? Again, one thing, I found a lot of things, but one thing that I noticed, right? So I have, I have those, Chinese, file testers. I don't know, what do we call them?
Same ones.
Hardness files. Yeah,
hardness files, right? And so, I kept going and, testing something with, I would quench and I did the recipe, perfect. And, I have the heat treat oven and I've dialed it in. I've kind of changed a couple, tried a couple different variants based on what I've seen on the internet. And it seemed like, like I could never get something harder than, I would test it with this 55 file and it seemed like it was biting in. And then, so then I decided and I'm testing it on the little back curve of that file. How it's like, just kind of sloped, they're kind of angled a little bit towards the tip. And then I was like, well, let me try the 60. I'll just kind of go right to the 60 and try it after I failed a bunch of times with this 55, and the 60 was skating. And I was like, well, interesting. And then I tried different spots on the 55 file, and that was skating. And so it seemed like I had this little piece on the back of this perfectly well-made file that's in jest, that that was digging in and biting in there, but the 60 wasn't, and then other parts of the 55 wasn't. And so, after I've got frustrated, I realized, well, maybe my file is not 100% dialed in. And so, again, I don't know if that could be, that I just bought a cheap set of knockoff hardness tetras or what, but that was one experience that I had that I found out that frustrated me, but maybe my heat treat was not that bad.
That's definitely one of the potential variables. How is he testing his file? Is his file sharp? Is his, another dumb thing that you don't think about sometimes, I say dumb because I've done it, is if you go all the way and you temper, your file's going to cut because you've taken that hardness back.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're new enough and you do it out of sequence, right, you do your file test after you've tempered, it's going to cut. But really, the most likely answer to me is two things. One would be decarb. So this guy has hardened this knife 4 times, and he's normalized it 3 times, at least twice. Right, that's a lot of cycles up to 1600 or 1500 degrees past critical to do all of those things. And each one of those cycles, you're losing a little bit of the carbon out of the outside of the steel. So my very first guess would be if he would put that on the grinder and take about 2 passes off, that it would be hard underneath. That would be my first guess. That it is actually hard, and it has been actually hard. It's just got a layer of soft steel on the outside. And what is it? 2,000ths, 5,000ths. I mean, 1 pass on a 120 belt, you get underneath it. That's probably what's going on. But I had an experience. Go ahead.
I'll say that sounds like a great marketing plan. The more you sharpen, the harder it gets.
There you go. So I had an experience one time. This was 10 solid years ago. So I was much greener than I am now anyway at the time. And I had a bar of 1084 straight from the well-known dealer of 1084. And I had the exact same experience. Like, it just wouldn't harden for nothing. And I had some bars of 1/8 and I had some bars of 3/16 of the same steel. I was doing them in an oven, so the temperatures were right, and the 1/8 would harden and the 3/16 wouldn't. And I did it a couple of times. And of course there were people watching, and I was very frustrated. That probably didn't help my algorithm, in terms of solving the problem, to try to do it under pressure. But what I think we figured out was that the 3/16 size was annealed differently from the factory, right? So this was just annealed bar stock, so I wasn't normalizing prior to heat treat. And the one that wasn't hardened was spheroid annealed more. It was more spheroidized, I guess. Nerd level, what that means is the grains are kind of larger, like the spheres, the clusters were larger. And so the answer for that one was you had to run it up to 16 or 1700 degrees and air cool it, right? To kind of bust up those spheroidized grains. Again, kind of weird, kind of off abnormal. But again, I did have that one experience, so there's a small chance that his hardening problem is that he's not hardening from an even state. I would take him for granted that he's normalized it properly, though. So it's probably not it. But again, I have had one experience where it was so well annealed that it wouldn't harden without some prior heat treatment. It's kind of weird, but
yeah. Well, I tell you what, you can get questions like that answered at the Rivers Experience. You can find them at theriversexperience.com. Let Eric of Rivers Experience teach you the final arts of knife making at the Rivers Experience on his website, YouTube, or better yet, go to the TRE workshop on Facebook, join the group there, and get all kinds of knife questions answered from new, moderate, and experienced knife makers today. That's the Rivers Experience and the TRE workshop on Facebook. Hey, guys, I have another question for you.
All right.
Hi, friends. Contemplating Hey, this is one for you, Mark. Hi, friends.
Okay.
Contemplating a surface grinding attachment to speed up flatness operations and general surface cleanup. Please share your experience with me on the units you have used. I have a 2x72 broadback that I would add it to, and a standard 1.5 millimeter arm. Thanks, gents. Now, we did talk about surface grinders a little bit ago. We can talk a little bit more, but keep in mind, Mark has an Ameribraid, but if you've got a broadback, I know that TR Maker sells a surface grinder with a 1.5 inch arm, and so does Ameribraid, and I'm sure there's others out there. So anyway, anybody want to jump on any ideas on your experience with surface grinders and how to use them and so on?
So I think I guess I'll jump in on saying that I'm right now I'm just using one small piece of a surface grinder, but I would say anytime you're considering buying a higher dollar attachment, you got to think of your use now and then potential uses in the future, right? And so something that I was considering, because I was also considering, again, I've watched some YouTube videos and I was like, I found a couple local machine shops. I was like, man, I might be able to just make one myself. I've seen a lot of videos on it, and I can just have somebody mill out some slots on a piece of aluminum and put some magnets in there. And again, if you've been on YouTube, you can see a bunch of different people making them. And so, but I ended up going with the Ameribraid, and so there was really at least two major factors. Is that one, it's built like the rest of their grinders, right? Like it's built like it's built like Chip's 1980 something truck that will run forever because it's built like a truck, right? And so it's super solid. It also has the ability to give you an offset angle. So if you want to do distal tapers or taper tangs or do some adjustments like that and get a little bit of fancier grinds in that, you can do that with their attachment. Plus it has a nice magnetic features where you can clip in the magnets that you choose to attach so there's like I think 5 magnet sets on there, and so you just twist it, and the magnet will pop up to the surface, and then it clings to that. The metal will cling to that piece, and then the ones you don't want to engage, you don't have to engage, and then it kind of keeps keeps some of the either debris on there, off there, or I guess you just don't have to engage them all. So again, those are some of the good features that I found. Other considerations as time passes, and I would not doubt if in future versions, because I talked to them a little bit about this on their surface grinder attachment and some of their other components, like their tilt table when we were at Blade Show, is I asked what their thought was in the future on adding more micro screw adjustments to their different attachments, right? Where you can, instead of using a slide and adjustment and using a ruler or something, you would really get that screw where you can kind of just make a fine screw adjustment and move it in a very defined method, mount and do that. So that's so that would be one thing that you could consider looking for. But yeah, no, I love mine. And then the bearings, it just slides. On the Ameribraid, it just slides super smooth back and forth. But I would also recommend that you have a horizontal feature if you're going to have the Ameribraid attachment. It's heavy, just like it's built like a truck. It'll last for 100 years. But using it in the vertical position probably wouldn't be a real great option, just because it's pretty solid and heavy. So you just get all the balance if it's in the horizontal mode for your grinder. So that's all I got to say about that.
Thanks, Forrest.
Yeah, I would come right behind you and say that's exactly right on the horizontal issue. So I have seen and played with an Ameribraid one time. The surface grinder attachment I have is the OBM, and it has less features. Honestly, it's kind of one of the simpler ones. It does the job just fine. It will put as smooth of a finish as you can muster. Right? It's a good, capable machine. But I think the Ameribraid is probably nicer. I did want to throw a shout out to the OG. To my understanding, Travis Wirtz basically invented the surface grinder attachment. He was the first one to think, well, what if I made some slidey things and some magnets, and I just made it that works on my grinder. He was the innovator of that technology, is my understanding.
Nice.
And he was a couple or 3 years ahead of everybody else. He was ahead of everybody else with a tilting grinder too. Some of his innovations have kind of taken over the marketplace.
That's a TW90.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Travis Wirtz. Yeah. So I would not rule out looking at the Wirtz surface grinder. I mean, it's the OG. It's the one that inspired all these other companies to make one. Again, I haven't personally. Well, no, I have. My buddy Chad has one I've played with one time. Before I knew anything about it, we were just cleaning up Damascus billets. But that's my limited experience. I would say the OBM has less features than the Ameribraid. I would say the Wirtz is definitely worthy of respect, and I would totally second Mark's assertion on the horizontal feature of your grinder. I would not want to be picking that surface grinder up 63 times just to make a pass. Horizontal's way better.
Let me ask you, your on a surface grinder, and again, since I only really have one and not a lot of experience, on this, would you get less if the wheel that the belt is around that you're grinding against, the larger the wheel of that, does it give you less chance of chatter? And then a smaller one would give you more chance of chatter, or does that matter much? What are your thoughts on that?
In theory. So my understanding is that, if you've got an 8-inch wheel or something, that your chatters have an 8-inch radius. If you have a 2-inch wheel, then the chatters, the divots have a 2-inch radius.
Yes.
I think mine has a 4-inch serrated wheel. Again, I don't have a ton of different experience with the variables, but I would say that from the science standpoints, that makes sense. The larger wheel would be better. The serrated wheels will remove material faster. The hard wheels will move material more precisely. I mean, that's why, the ultimate precision is not a grinder attachment. It's a stone grinder, a freestanding surface grinder, because those hard stones are made to cut precisely, not remove a ton of material. Like you say, when you get the tool, you have like one task in mind. And the better you get with the tool, you think of 5 or 7 or 26 other things that you can do with it. Once upon a time, I actually had a stone surface grinder, kind of the top end of the stack. And I had no experience with it and no training. And so I just started messing with it, right? And I couldn't make it do what I wanted to, partly because I was trying to take too much material off, and I didn't have a selection. No, but like it would cut 10 thousandths. I mean, And if you're trying to flatten something that's really not flat, like off the forge, it just took too many passes because it was manual, so just cranking it back and forth. Whereas the surface grinder attachments, you can hog it a little better, get one side sort of flat and flip it over. I mean, so for what I was doing, which was Damascus billets, the attachment actually works better than the more precise stone grinder. Again, it's just for me. And I probably, if I had some actual training or more experience with the stone grinder, I would have liked it better. But ultimately, I did a 1-for-1 swap. So I sold my stone grinder, used that money and bought an attachment, and haven't looked back. I think that was the right move for me at the time.
Great. Well, just so we get it out there, TR Maker also makes a surface grinder, and Otis or Pinto has one of those. So if you're looking at some people with some different options, certainly go to, as we mentioned, TRE Workshop on Facebook, Eric's group, and just chat out, and they ask me some questions on surface grinders. And Otis here's got one brand, Mark's got the other, Fry's got one, and I use a 2 handled strong magnets and a 4x30-inch sander in a vertical position, and I just take that steel to it on both sides, and I use my gauges and calipers, and I set and measure them until it's close enough on both sides. And I know that's it's one way of doing it. Certainly isn't as tight as what you guys got. But I haven't run into any issues, but that's not to say that I wouldn't buy a surface grinder if I had the money right now. So I'm jealous of you guys for owning one. But right now, hey guys, if all you got is two magnets and a platen to go up against, you can do that too. But you have to be, regardless of the tools you have to be intentional. So even with me, you heard me say something. I take them to a belt. I will use Harbor Freight 80 and 120 grit belts to get started. And then I've got some 4x30s from Phoenix, and I've got some old ones from Red Label that I still use that I haven't run out of yet. And I'll go through and I'll, as I get closer, clean them up on those to get it cleaner so that, when you go to hand sanding, you're not sanding out 80 grit and 120 grit scratches. But the next thing is using your measurement tools and going down and making sure that both those edges are, within a few thousandths of each other. And you can do that. You have to be intentional and you have to be careful at it, and you can do it. But it's certainly not at the same level as a surface grinder. I don't want to imply that. So I'm jealous. You guys probably get what I would like to do done much, much quicker and a much better product on the end. So good deal. Good deal.
One more thing on surface grinders that I would like to get in the future, and I was almost thinking about, like, I keep thinking that I'll make it, and then I think, well, maybe I just buy it because I don't have time to make it, is that, I've seen attachments that will, ferrous attachments that'll magnet to your surface grinder attachments that'll have some screws, and you can clamp in blocks of wood and non-ferrous materials in it, and then, take them on your surface grinder and flatten them out. And so, which, definitely intrigues me, gives you another level of use, for a tool that, get some more worth, out of the investment that you have. Right. And so,
I can tell you, head over to tr-maker.com and pick yourself up one today.
Yes, I've seen that one, and so I've been on the fence a little bit about getting it, because what I use now, right, for my wood blocks is I had a power planer, and then I went on YouTube and I built a little stand for it, and so now it's a joiner. It's a 3-inch wide joiner, and so with a fence on it that's parallel or perpendicular. And so really that's how I start my stuff now, is that I take one side of it on that, and I get a nice flat side, plain side, sand it on my flat surface, and then again measure and get the other surface. And so, that's what I've been doing it. But again, I have this nice tool. It'd be cool to kind of just clamp something in and run it over a belt, right?
For sure. And I will tell you, with grinders of any brand, nothing's as easy as just slapping it in. The one thing I loathe is having to pull out arms and put in new belts. That's how guys end up with 2 or 3 grinders set up in three different configurations, so they can just go down the line. But I'm still, you have to switch things out. You pull everything out so you can do 2 minutes worth of work to put everything back to do 45 minutes worth of work. And it's just, we're lazy by nature. But I'm again jealous that you're going to be able to buy that you already have one, because you know who Vince is, and he sold the ShamWow. Well, he also sold the Slap Chop, and I bought 2 ShamWows at a show from him, got a Slap Chop, and a slidey salad maker. And I use my slidey salad maker with its little gate on there to set and run my blocks up and down and shave them off till they're perfectly flat.
Never would have thought of that, Chip. That's a great idea.
I use my ShamWow to clean them up. No, what I do is I take them to my platen, and I go back to it. I use a height gauge, and as I sand one side down and get it flat, and everything's squared up with my, I put it on an angle so I can set and make sure everything is squared. and then I go to the other side with a surface grinder, scribe it, mark it, and then I go through and I sand it down to that, and then I mic it, and then I go to a piece of marble and I hand sand it out. Again, the long way of doing something. But it tends to work. But yeah, these tools that they're doing, the only thing they haven't provided us yet is, and it's out there, is a mechanized, robotic driven arm tool that you just put the blank, a square rectangular blank in it, and it just goes back and forth and does the grinding and shaping and cutting out while you sit there and drink some moonshine and smoke a cigar. So,
right. I would say, what else? I was going to say one more thing about surface grinders. Totally lost it. Man, this is awesome radio.
While you're thinking about it, don't forget to go to castingcrafts.com, because if you do, Emily's got all kinds of styles and patterns that she produces the handles. I asked her one time to make me some turkey feather handle stock, and she made those, and they were so beautiful. Thanksgiving's coming around. Somebody may be getting a Thanksgiving carving knife, mama. So with wild turkey feather handles in it. And the good thing about it is they're acrylic and they come to you perfectly flat. No sanding to do there other than just a little touch up before you put them on a flat piece of marble, and you're good to go. And that's castingcrafts.com. See what Emily has to offer you today. All kinds of different things. And if you don't see it there, contact her, and I guarantee you she'll make it like she did for me regarding the scales that I wanted.
I would say another way to flatten some of those things. Yeah, it came back. And I know a few of the resin people do this, is to use a fly cutter in a mill. Or a face mill, or just a 1/2 inch, a large diameter mill, and mill them flat. I kind of go back and forth between the 1/2 inch mill and the fly cutter, just depending on what I have the mill set up for at the time, because they do basically the same job. The fly cutter doesn't always leave a smooth finish, depending on what kind of wood it is. I mean, it'll be flat or square to the axis, right? But it may not be a very fine finish. But then again, some woods finish very, very nicely. So, I know like Matt at Voodoo Resins seems to use a fly cutter on his scale sets, just based by the scratch pattern. It's another good way to do things, because you get about a 2.5 or 3 inch wide pass at one time. So it's useful for blocks.
Yeah, I've got some of those bits, but I don't have the mill to go with it. I don't know how I ended up with the bits. I ended up with the bits. They were probably some hand-me-down or something, but I've got some knives bits, just nothing to stick at them. So anyway,
Jason,
maybe I can...
Go ahead. I'm sorry. So again, this is kind of going, back, I don't know, 30 minutes here, but again, you were bringing up, cutting shoulders in, the long side shoulders on hidden tangs. I mean, do you use your mill to do that, or are you doing that with files?
I'm doing it with files. I have done it with a mill before. So the challenge with the mill, yes, you can even use your file guide kind of as a jig, and flip it around in the vise so that everything stays, parallel and square how you want it. And you can cut shoulders in that way. The challenge is it leaves a little bit of it is in some ways. It is in some ways, but it leaves a little burr when you're cutting the material. And so, on a forged blade, I will not cut those shoulders until I'm hand sanded. Right. So I don't hardly at all mess with the finish of the ricasso after I cut those shoulders. If you cut them in a mill, you've got to deal with that little burr and do some more abrasive work to get it polished back. Now, I promise you there are better machinists than I am that probably have figured that out. Everything I know about the mill, I learned by trial and error. But the times that I have done that, it has not worked as well. Another thought, so you can very precisely cut those shoulders, even on the long side, but it's only going to be precise as wide as your mill bit. Right. So if you're using like a 1/8 mill bit or something to cut that in, your dimension is only going to be 1/8 wide. So you'll have to grind down the tang on the backside, kind of away from that shoulder.
Yeah. I mean, but that's what you want is just, you want to get right close to the shoulder, and then you could even take the rest of it to a grinder, right? I mean, it's.
Yeah, you absolutely can.
So the key is getting that real close piece right on the shoulder done. And if you have an eighth of an inch there, that's like a mile that you don't have to worry about, right?
And so it sure can be.
But
again, I've done it a couple of times, enough to tell it didn't do what I wanted. And again, that may be user error on my part.
But you finished sand. You finish sand the flats, and then you put your file guide on those finished sand flats, and it do you put tape on it or something?
I do, and it scratches them up. It scratches them up a little bit.
Okay.
But the kind of scratches you get when you've got that are not much.
Yeah.
Whereas if you hadn't finished that ricasso, you'll absolutely round over that shoulder hand sander.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Right. So. Yeah.
And that brings us to Maritime Knife Supply at MaritimeKnifeSupply.com. Mark will not be swimming up there this week because it's parade season, guys. So to get great products and service, you're going to have to go up there yourself, or even better yet, go through the internet. Get service in Canada and internationally. Check out Maritime for great deals on service, steel, abrasives, handle material, kilns, grinders, just everything. They've got everything. They supply everything to the knife maker to make wonderful blades. And that's at MaritimeKnifeSupply.com. That's all I got to say about that. Mark, I'm sorry you can't swim up there this week, but the world needs its parades. The world needs its parades.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Hey, I got another question to throw at you, and this one's good. Maybe I can even answer this one.
All right.
It's about heat temp control in a coal forge.
Ooh.
I've had a coal forge. I have a coal forge. I'll be using green coal. I'll be using green coal this weekend. And I've got a gas forge now. My coal forge just sits in the basement as a backup just in case the world runs out of propane. It says, I have 26C3, which requires soaking at 800 to 820 C for 10 minutes for the best heat treat. I'm using my homemade forge, hardwood charcoal, and a weakish air blower that can get way past 800 C. I had a hardwood forge. That's what I've got that I put away. I put my knife inside of a rectangular pipe. I made it so it evenly heats, and it works great, even every time. I can control when it gets to 800. My question is, how can I keep it at that temp without getting too hot? I don't have a thermometer. I know salt melts at 800. But how do I keep it at 800 to 820 for 10 minutes? You can't. That's my answer.
Practice. Practice. That's my only answer to that. I think
go ahead.
Having a low-powered blower works in your favor here. Using the pipe muffle works in your favor for sure. But other than that, man, that's all I got. I did a charcoal pile of bricks forge for my first 40 blades. And I melted a few of the first 20. Right. So that's all I would know. I'm not a coal expert, although I have done the charcoal thing. So what do you got, Mark?
I was going to say, again, I have no clue about it, but except that, it's been done for a long time, right? Like it hasn't been in history, for propane forges and stuff, until pretty recently. Right. And so, there are, I'm assuming, a lot of, but it's skill that was probably passed down over ages, right? So, I think the learning, that's what it is that, hey, they could both be perfected. However, one, the learning curve is, turn something on, watch a thermometer, and then be able to have it really quickly and easily without a lot of practice. And then there's something that, hey, you have to ruin a lot of knives to get right, is in my thought.
And, I will tell you that you're right, Mark. It's been done for a long, long time. But with the high-tech steels that we've got today and with the things that we do, there's guys out there that forge in coal all the time that I'm sure can get exactly what they're working for. And it's just repetition and knowing what you're doing. But there's a lot to be said for heat treat ovens. There's a lot to be said for gas forges where you can really dial in the temp and get it, brick off the back. That's what I've got. I've got a thermocouple that I pop in there. I've bricked off the back, and I've got three burners, and I can adjust those 3 burners where that way it stays consistent from front to back. And I can get into a zone. With coal, of course, that's going to require some introducing air in this, that, and the other. The thing is that you may not be able to get the consistent hardness that you're looking for with, you can, until you repeat and learn. A lot of it's going to come down to color. Are you forging, in the dark, in a darker area so you can really watch your color instead of forging to temperature? A lot of those guys forge to color. And when you're using 26C3, maybe you need to get rid of the 26C3 since you've just got coal and use some steels that are more favorable and conducive to using those. Hey, you get it red and you harden it and you're going to get 65. There's nothing unless you're having to use 26C3 for a particular reason. Is 26C3, is that a stainless or is that something in particular?
I'm looking it up. It's a carbon steel.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Looks like it's got like 1.2, 1.3 of carbon and a little bit of chromium, manganese, and silicon. So with that high carbon, it's going to be a little iffy. It's going to be more like 52-100 or some of those high carbon steels that require a little bit of alloying to pull that carbon out, kind of to tie it up in carbides. That to say, probably work. Probably also not your best choice for primitive techniques.
True. So I think hey, if you're doing coal forging, choose a different steel. That's all.
That would be my first piece of advice. Again, looking at the composition, it's doable. But you're adding some unnecessary challenges to yourself by doing it that way.
Yeah, I hear you. While we were on the phone,
buy some and cut it up and just practice with it. You don't have to actually spend a lot of time making a great looking knife and cut up some pieces and then just kind of practice with your soak times and where you have it in your in the coal and a bunch of stuff and just I think the more you practice with it and the better. But you don't have to spend 3 weeks making a perfecting or a month making something perfect and then messing it up, right? But when you're still practicing.
And you can also send it off and get it hardened and bring it back and finish grinding it. True. Or you can send them off as blanks, get them hardened and bring them back and grind them from there.
That's a great option.
I think that you're just trying to perform something with a tool that's not really as tunable as you want it to be. So either get a steel that works with that medium or, find a technology that works with the steel that you want to use. So, but in Kadonk, hey, one more question.
All right.
I think the name of this episode shall be, we're just going to talk about knives tonight instead of last one, which is, are we ever going to talk about knives?
There you go.
My current North Carolina Tools forge is on its last legs. I've always struggled with forge welds that aren't just flat, clean stack. Anything like welding a socket or a basket twist, that kind of thing. I'm not in a position to get a coal forge. I don't know if that's if he's talking about actual coal. So I'm looking to replace it with a different brand. Does anybody have any recommendations under $750 so I could just learn how to make a forge weld? But I don't need to feel like I'm going down but I just don't feel like going down a rabbit hole right now. Here you go, dude. Go out and buy a Majestic Forge, a 2-burner, and you can easily get forge welds with that. Get you a 30-gallon tank to go with it, so you don't have to worry about it freezing up on you. And the only reason I say get a 2-burner, 1 burner can be kind of short. You get that, you can heat it up to forge temperature in no time, and you can make forge welds in the story. Under $750.
I would say that's good a recommendation as any. We've talked before about the Apollo forges on here. Atlas, Charles, what's his name? Charles's name.
Charles Atlas?
He has that. No, he has the Atlas forge and the Graham forge. I can see his face. I know the guy. His name is Charles.
But you know who Charles Atlas was, don't you, though?
No, I don't.
Oh, it was in the back of comic books when I was a kid. There was always the guy sitting on the beach, and the muscle guy came up and kicked sand in the little guy's face with his girlfriend. And then Charles Atlas would come in and say, buy my book and get muscles. So you sent in and you got an exercise book from Charles Atlas.
Oh, fun. Well, there you go.
1950s or 60s weightlifter.
There you go.
Anyway, I digressed into worthlessness information.
That's okay. Charles Clayton. There it is. Looked it up. Charles Clayton makes a couple of good forges. Been around a good while. Spends a lot of time on R&D on his. Like I said, we've talked about Housemaid making forges, I believe, right?
I'll give a plug for Eric, right? I mean, again, go on the Rivers Experience, watch Eric, on YouTube and look at the forge that he's using, right? Like he built, it's basically a home-built fire brick forge that he put together, that he could transform into any length. And then I think most recently, he just kind of bought a couple of burners to plug in there, welded a bracket to kind of keep them all linked up so they're not going to be, wonky. And then, again, he forges every Saturday night, another knife, right? Like, and so, I think there are a bunch of options that, really very affordable options that can do the job.
Well under $750. And you can go on and buy a burner set either from a forge manufacturer, or you can buy burner sets on Amazon that are fairly basic burners that do a good job. And like you just said, just like Eric did, buy your fire bricks and put them together. So
I made my burner. Out of a pipe and some welding tips and whatever the formula I saw on YouTube was, right? And it works great.
I've made a couple as well. Everything I've got forge wise, I built. I will throw in a plug for. There's a book about forge burners and gas forges by a guy named Michael Porter. That book was published in 2003. So it's a little older. The advantage to that, and why I bring it up, is that it's available online as a PDF. And Mr. Porter is not printing them anymore, and he doesn't care, and he tells you go get that PDF. So a good entry level forge building book for those that want a little more detail than a YouTube video is Michael Porter's Gas Forge Burner book.
Excellent.
That is what I used to build my two. I've done a Venturi and a blown, both with designs from there. So
give me his name. Give me his name again.
Michael Porter, Porter.
MICHAEL PORTER. I'll put in forge and let's see how easy that is to find. FORGE. Mike's burner design. There you go. Jumps right up. And then after that's Chili Forge. That's more than $750. Hey,
so yeah, if you just, I Googled Michael Porter Forge book PDF, and there it is in a couple of places immediately. Google Books, a few other places. That one that's Mike's burner design is on iForge Iron forums. Mike is on there a lot also. So good reference for those that want to build. It doesn't take much machinery. I mean, a mill is handy, but you can do it without. It talks about how to build one without. So, with parts from Home Depot. So, or Lowe's if you prefer, or Ace Hardware,
or Amazon,
or Amazon.
Have it sent to your house.
Yeah, yeah.
I've got some other great information. If you go to frycustomknives.com, you can also find some great books there to order. So check them out today. 101 knife making hacks.
384 knife making hacks.
Oh, it's grown.
I don't have 180 hacks. I got more than one hack a day.
Yeah. Me too. I was leading in to let people know they're going to get their money's worth because everyone's like 101 jokes you can tell at a party. Jason goes much higher than that.
Yeah,
why did you stop? Why did you stop at 384?
So our original plan was to do 365, right? And then I just
one for every day.
I thought, well, maybe some of these are going to suck, so I need a few extras. And so I just kept going, right? And and as we got into the editing, we're like, well, I didn't duplicate any on purpose, right? So let's just put them all in there. You know, it can be a random large number, and that's okay. So that's where we got 384. I mean, it was 385 or 365 plus a few spares that we just included.
Now, correct me.
Well, 392 or whatever.
Oh yeah. I want to make sure I'm right, though. If folks go directly to your site and buy your book there, they can actually get it signed?
They get it autographed direct from me. So if you go to Fry Custom Knives on the store, you can buy my books straight from me. I actually have all three of my books, knife-making books, plus my politics book, all direct. They are also on Amazon. I have spent some time setting up that infrastructure, so now they are attributed to me properly on Amazon as well, instead of Jason Fry, the Star Wars book guy that they defaulted to. He is my fifth cousin, by the way. But yeah, so Amazon is great if you want them fast. But if you want an autographed one, man, I can hook you up at frycustomknives.com.
Yeah.
Now, if they wanted you to sign them, would you'll sign them? That's correct, right? That's what we know to be true.
And if they email me something like to my best buddy Chip, the best knife maker in the world, like I would probably indulge that if they had a special request.
Well, that was my next question. If they asked you to put in there, Chip says hi, or something like that about Chip. And even Marky Mark says Forge on, dude, or something like that. You'd put whatever they want you to write, you'll write in there as long as it's appropriate.
To a degree.
And if the money's right, you'll consider other things, but it's gotta be clean and it's gotta be right. So we'll see what happens there. Well, guys, if you have questions, comments, product reviews, show and guest ideas, subscribe and email us at thenivestemplars@yahoo.com or DM us on Facebook at the Knives Templars Podcast Group. Visit us at knivestemplars.com to always stay up to date. Our episode is sponsored by the Rivers Experience, Casting Crafts and Marabraid, and their Templars 10 for parts and accessories. That's for a one-time purchase. Pops Knife Supplies, Maritime Knife Supply, Phoenix Abrasive, and Templars 10 at checkout for their 10% off their order. You can find us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're really picking up on Apple these days, guys. YouTube Music, Anchor, Amazon, YouTube Video, and CastBox. If you need any resources, suggested materials, or social media, see us at the Knives Templars Podcast on Facebook and let us know what you're looking for, or at thenivestemplars.com. If you want to become a sponsor of the show, get in touch with us at the Knives Templars group on Facebook or email us at knivestemplars@yahoo.com. With all that being said, guys, what do we say? I say good night. What do you say?
Yeah, I'll go with good night.
Yeah, just a standard good night, my friends, to everyone listening. Appreciate your hanging out with us to the end.
Well, is anybody going to, say...
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Brought to you by Porkhouse Productions. Oinky, oinky, oinky.
Oinky, oinky.
That's the first time I've ever, that's the first time I've ever done the pig like that.
There you go.
That's pretty interesting there. I don't know if that was good or not. My sinuses hurt now. Oh, well. Well, guys, post-show, a post, after show, and extravaganza. We're on Taylor Travis watch throughout the month of September to see if they're going to stay together. Odds are they're breaking up on the 28th, according to TMC.
Oh, is there's some intel about a pending breakup, huh?
Well, supposedly there's a contract out there. They're saying it's fake, but who knows? Everything in the world these days.
Speaking of contracts and those guys, I heard that the Kelsey brothers got $100 million contract to do a podcast on Amazon, even though they're not podcasters. So Amazon, Jeff Bezos, if you're listening, we will work for a lot less than $100 million. If you want to sponsor our podcast, even like one little million would be a good start. We're 100 times cheaper than those dang football players.
I'll take $100 per person per episode.
There you go. That would be $100 raise right there.
Beer and tobacco money. So, anywho. Well, guys, we're here on a Wednesday night. The rest of our guys, Otis here, couldn't be here tonight because Friday night's his podcasting night. Eric was thinking he could, but I'm sure business has picked up. Big Hand Dave's into the football thing right now. He's got a daughter at University of North Alabama, I believe. Son at home. I don't know if he's playing football or what he's doing, but he's really involved in sports. And Josh is on the road. And Otis, I mentioned Otis here, Mark, Big Hand, and Josh. Yeah, that rounds us out. So
and on Friday, our two regulars, Chip and Josh, will be teaching at the Tannehill, right?
Yes, we will.
Yeah, so that's why
morning session.
We're doing Friday.
So we'll get this out a little bit early. So, Mark, what you got? What you going into this rest of this week and weekend?
So on Saturday I leave. So I'm going to a conference in Atlanta for the American Public Works Association conference. That's annual conference they do. So, and so the good thing is in Atlanta. So it's nice and close. So it's not I think last year it was in San Diego. So that was a little bit of a trip. To
it
get
was
out
San
there,
Diego, and with the fact that I don't like visiting California just because it's a weird place to go. It's also a fun place to go, like San Diego, the seafood and everything and all that stuff. Yeah. Oh, it's gorgeous. Yeah. It's just it has nothing to do with politics. The sun angle, the so many things about California. Just I'm sure I could acclimate to, but it just doesn't. It's just weird to me to be out there.
So, yeah. So I'll be at that till Wednesday, travel back on Thursday, and then, a day to get blasted with all the stuff I missed from work for that entire week, and then back into the weekend. So although conferences are fun, the work doesn't go away. So, it just builds up, and then you get it when you get back.
I'm going to be in a Gulfstream on Monday, shooting over to Mississippi, and it's really nice because it's typically a 4-hour trip, and going down to Tuscaloosa, roll tide, is fine. But once you get to Tuscaloosa, there all the way to Laurel, Mississippi is just a ghost road. It's one of those places you don't want to break down in the middle because it's a 3-day walk out of there. And very few exits and such. So it's a lost highway. But so I'm fortunate to get on that. And I like to say Gulfstream because it's very fortunate. Nobody is king of this world because everything that we have can be taken care of every time, taken away at any time. The only reason I say that is because it feels very nice not to have to go through security and all that at a commercial airport and have to jump on those. Just to go to a small airport and jump on a jet plane and fly. It's just it's a nice perk. So I like that. I'm hoping that the Jeep arrives tomorrow, Friday or Saturday, so I can get over there on either tomorrow or Saturday or Sunday and pick up that Jeep. I got to take a look at it. I paid to have it shipped, but I hope everything's okay with it and bring it home this weekend, and then I'll be able to sell my truck to you guys at that time. Which one of you are going to get it, or y'all hadn't fought over it yet, or
I already have an extra vehicle myself, so I'm out, buddy. Sorry, I love you.
It's an investment. You got 2 young boys; they could share it. They're twins in about 10 years. No, seriously, I shouldn't have a problem selling it locally, but I have offered it up to friends, and that's why I joke about it. And I may just keep it around the house. Who knows? But that's kind of my next week. I'll be home next Wednesday, And next Wednesday, I hope to go back Wednesday night or Thursday evening and start drilling holes in some soft steel to make a guard for that buoy and get it done. So, and Jason, you're going to be beating steel out in front of the True Value.
Yep.
Race
in front of the knife guys store in Amarillo, and then Sunday I'll probably try to heat treat maybe some of those laser cut blanks. I need to do a little bit of work Sunday. But Monday morning at 6 a.m., I fly out on a business trip. Won't be back till Wednesday night. So got a few of those coming up. So
gotcha.
That's just how it is. It takes the mojo out of you, like Mark is saying. So
yeah. And I told my son earlier this week, he went and worked on Labor Day. I said, son, you got to work to live. Don't live to work. So, it's important. And that's what allows us to do what we do. Hey, with all that being said, that's when somebody imitates me someday or does my impression, I'll be like, with all that being said, that's what he always says. And, but it'll, with all that being said, we're going to cut it short and be gone. I guess we got our over 2 hours in, which we typically do.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Cool. Yeah. But God bless everybody. Keep making knives. Keep having fun. Please get in touch with us. We enjoyed that email this week. It makes us feel good to know there's another listener out there. If you're down and out, you need anything in life and everything, just lift your eyes up and say a prayer, because God's out there for all of us. And with all that being said, we will offer you this little tune.